Kevin Day, Food Town Kingpin, owner of Pain Cheater Knee Pads. I was never punk. I was always like a new wave dude. So like I went to all that other shit. I think I saw the Dead Kennedys in some loft in the North End with like 6 people or something. But they didn't impress me at all. I don't know. It was just some weird show that came by. I did see the Loud Ones once in Central Square. I'm going to think 82. I know Sean McLean was still singing for them then, and I remember that they lit firecrackers off. I'll have to say the Loud Ones. I wasn't really my kind of music. I kind of came to the dark side later. Wow, that's a good one. I'm just going to go with these guys here at Attleboro 5.9. They've been solid through all these years. They continue to add new people. They're not. It's like this elitist group, but it's a loose strung elitist group. Oh wow. Um, Jimi Hendrix. I'm gonna say Tony Alva from Skateboarder, where he was riding the Gons pool in his interview, and the coping's on fire. There's something about that picture. The whole coping's on fire. He's doing a front side air. He looks scared, and he looks. It's very intense. And yeah, that one kind of opened my eyes. Like, wow, that shit might actually be dangerous. Best punk band of all time. Um. So many different ways you could go there. Oh, the Bad Brains punk? Do you consider them? I mean, that's kind of like a crossover thing. I love the Bad Brains. Favorite skateboarder of all time? Wow, that's a toughie. There's so many different eras, so many people you could look across to, and there's so many people who weren't who never got the recognition that they could have gotten. um, I'd like to pick someone from each decade. I'm gonna go with Mike Weed. Because Mike Weed, one, he was an all-around skater at a time when a lot of people just did freestyle or slalom or then bull riding later, and he did it all. Also, early on, he was a quiver guy. He had a ton of boards, and he was the first guy ever to have the two-ended skateboard that is used today in a modern sense. He had that in 1978. I mean, early on, like crazy boards, high-tech shit that Skitch Hitchcock and his brother Garrison made for him, like all sorts of stuff that no one ever did. So in a lot of ways, I think he was the biggest person in that time. I'm going to go with another Hobie guy. I'm going to go with Eddie Alguera. He invented all kinds of stuff. He got a bad name. Like, he wasn't punk like Dwayne. Those guys always went at it. Dwayne invented his tricks. Eddie invented his own. Eddie invented some crazy stuff that other phenomenal. So in the 80s, I go with Eddie. The 90s is a funny time because all the vert skating kind of died. I'm going to go with Red Scott, who built Burnside. although he never was pro, but the guy made the 90s something different. He took something that was gone and he brought it back again for the sake of skateboarding. And to me, that's bigger than any accomplishments you could have in a contest or accolades you could get from your fellow skaters. I'm going to go with Bob Burnquist, even though he's kind of like a media star and sucks up to the media a bit. He did shit that other people didn't think of. And you know, I mean, most people would say Danny Way, but I mean, Bob Burnquist tried to loop Baldy and fucking got slammed. I mean, you ever seen that footage? That guy's committed. And later on, he did it in his own backyard on a natural full pipe. And as much as like people bag on him for doing the parrot jumping shit and whoozy doozies and whatever, that guy is pushing the edge of all different kinds of skateboarding in a lot of the ways that Danny Way does, and a lot of these street skaters who are taking skateboarding from riding on a skateboard to juggling with your feet, which is what we do now, right? Punk singer of all time. Best punk singer of all time. I always liked Lux Interior of the Cramps. It's just me. I'm gonna go with Henry Rollins' Black Flag. Whenever that comes on, I just start singing along, and just, that era of Black Flag, not Daz the other singer. Well, that hands down, that's the Chainsaw. Chainsaw by Schmidt Stick. They made it in 86 through 87. I rode 14 of them in a row, and I have all but one of them at home. I actually have a brand new one at home. They're all up on the wall at home. Yeah, the Chainsaw. It was like my board, my staple board. June 30th, I believe, 1980, Devo at the Orpheum. It was the only time they ever played in Boston in the 80s. And Doug actually got me a recording of it recently on CD. It was on BCN or something, and he had it all on there. And the neatest thing about that was I didn't know at the time that Devo was involved with all this whole like cross-counter skate thing too. And so Devo did their whole thing, and it was amazing because they were the first band ever that had cordless microphones. And they it was the paper suit deal, and they had the microphones, and they ran all over the place. They ran they were like climbing up the balcony on the side, and they were still singing, and it was a visual experience that concerts weren't like that before. They had these big light boxes that they stood in front of for the first half of the show, and then they had an intermission, and they showed all these skate films that they had filmed with Alva and Steve Alba, Olson, Hackett, Peters. They all did these crazy little skits that were in the middle of that. I never knew that was going to go on. I was like floored. It had all to do with skating. Then they put the light boxes down, and they stood on top of them and did their whole second set. And then what I thought was amazing was the lights went up at the end of the concert, and I had gone with these people. I worked at Whole Foods at the time, and I'd gone with these people from work, and the lights went up, and all these skaters that I knew were all around me in the audience that I didn't know were even there. There was Jake Phelps and this whole crew from Marblehead were there, who I hadn't seen since Zero Gravity had closed in 1979, and this was like a whole year and a half later. And then there was all these other skaters over here, and it was like this giant reunion when the lights went up, and best show I ever seen. Well, I don't really know where the youth is right now because I'm an old crusty dude. But for the youth in skateboarding, I would say don't set your sights too high. When you look at skateboarding in videos or magazines, a lot of it seems unfathomable and unobtainable, and that I think kids really need to learn board control before they decide that they're just going to take over the world with the biggest kickflip around. Mike Brown. Mike Brown was a street skater from the '90s. He rode Maximus a lot. He was one of the first guys we ever saw just ride switch, and he had like the loosest style. He like if he learned like a backside tail slide, then he learned a backside tail slide switch like right away, and it looked like mirror image. He just had this like flowy, natural style. So I'd pick him for one of these underground rippers who never got his due. I was riding with my friends, one of them being Sebastian Nichols. He drops in and does a front side air in front of me, and his rear toe wheel flies off. His back toe wheel flies off onto the mini over there. Everyone's screaming because they see his wheel flying over here. He lands the front side air, and since he's still turning front side, he doesn't wipe out because he doesn't have weight on that back wheel. He goes up the other wall and he does a front side stale fish. Everyone's still screaming. It wasn't even that big, but everyone's like, dude, you're missing a wheel. He lands that and he finally turns backside across the flat of the bottom and wipes out, wondering why. There's no industry here. If you make it in skateboarding, you make it on your own here, and you have to go somewhere else to actually get a name for yourself. It's really crusty here. Everything is rough. It's hard to ride unless you make it yourself. But I mean, all the natural obstacles, the streets, everyone complains about the fact it's very rough here. I mean, it's gritty New England. We have bad winters, we have hot summers, and it takes its toll on all the terrain. So you have to be kind of rugged to want to pull it off here. This place is very honest. It's not, people aren't looking over your shoulder for someone more famous behind you. They're talking to you because this is New England. We look you straight in the eye. We tell you what's up. Sometimes we'll heckle the fuck out of you because that's what we do.